From the first instant this victim could see an emerging threat until he was being struck in the face with a metal object and forced to the ground was just 2.73 seconds. Hey guys, retired Lieutenant Todd Heaton here with Humilitas First. Some bad guys are better than others at sinking an ambush in deeply using surprise, speed, and violence of action. Bad guys already know this stuff. They consistently use it. Criminals often have a kind of Harvard education regarding the fundamentals of unjust killings, robberies, and all of the other violent crimes. Humilitas First is dedicated to exposing you, the innocent person of goodwill, to these fundamental principles. It's April 5th, 2023, Houston, Texas, at 10 o'clock at night. The intended victim cannot see this robber running towards him because the building is blocking his view until the bad guy breaches beyond this last blind corner. So this is the first surprise. If you were to spend the next second and a half roughly looking at the alignment of his hips and shoulders, well, many people are going to expect to see this guy continue running out into and crossing the street, because initially that's what his alignment is telling you. There's a few different ways you can learn these things. First, through experience, say as a police officer or a bad guy. Next, through seeing it happen repeatedly, like I'm showing you here. And lastly, by somebody that you've come to trust, sharing the first-hand experience with you. A lot, perhaps most people, are going to want to believe that he's just crossing the street. It's easy to get stuck in the denial stage when what is most needed is the acceptance stage that this is actually happening right here, right now. What about his vision? What's he looking at? Is his head still oriented in that direction? Is he looking at you? Is he looking at this corner he has to negotiate? Or is he looking out into the street? What's a disinterested near pass with the close apex point do for a criminal? Those kind of facts are part of a knowledge base relating to tactics. Think of this like a quick first impression. How long does that last? I don't know. I'm going to take a guess and say maybe it takes a half second. Maybe it takes 3/4 of a second. It probably depends upon how much you practice these skills. Just about everything in life is going to come back to, are you willing to do the work? That quick first impression is just a snapshot. You could call it a combat snapshot of what you see. You're going to want to train yourself to quickly break that focus and to focus on his hands. What, if anything, is in his hands? Is he holding any object that you believe to be a gun, knife, or a bludgeon? Where are his hands? Are any of his hands concealed inside of a pocket? Maybe one of his hands is concealed by the angle of his approach. Maybe he's reaching inside of his coat. Maybe he's reaching behind his back. If you reasonably fear that he's reaching for a weapon, well, now we're getting into facts that are going to support or not support, depending on what you see, a lethal or deadly use of force against an imminent threat of great bodily harm or death. In previous videos, I've talked about subject factors: bigger, faster, stronger, younger versus older, male versus female, multiples. Well, what I'm talking about here is weapon factors. If somebody is running at me with a bludgeon, something they can use to hit me in the head and cause great bodily harm or death, my gun is coming out and up. If he doesn't immediately suffer a psychological stoppage, but he presses forward, then that gun is going to get used in a defensive manner. That's how this stuff works. He's going to begin to de-accelerate, and his hips and shoulders are going to pivot to be in direct alignment with you. You're going to have about 1 second from that point to do whatever it is you're going to do to defend yourself. Or you're just going to get hit in the face with the metal object and forced to the ground. He only spends about 5 seconds gathering this victim's wallet, and he's already on the run again, fleeing the scene. So his second surprise in less than 3 seconds is he's not going to continue out into the street. When he reaches this apex point, he's going to begin turning his hips and shoulders so that he's in direct alignment with you. And there is a real short clock ticking. Is that a metal object in his hands? Yes, it is. Okay, let's talk solutions. So based upon the kinds of comments that I routinely see, I'm going to say many, if not most people, are going to want to see the firearm solution first. In my opinion, here it is. Okay, so that's a Special Forces veteran who also happens to be a Grandmaster level USPSA practical shooter. Is there any question in your mind whether this gentleman has done the work to get better and be competent at what he does? There's no question in my mind. If there is a question in your mind, let me show you what a beginner looks like trying to just get the mechanics of getting the firearm out and up correct. According to the video title, this is an Illinois concealed carry student just learning to draw. And I assure you, if she continues to do the work, she's going to get a lot better. I'm going to tell you what I see. Once she begins her draw, it's 1.13 until she clears the holster. She reaches full presentation, or the degree of arm extension that she's going to reach, at about 1.60. And though I don't see a red dot on the firearm, so to me it looks like her dominant eye is not connected with the iron sights. She hasn't done the work to build in a good index. That takes time and that takes work. So going back to her first run, it's 1.66 seconds when she would be able to get her first shot off, and the accuracy of that shot would be in question. Alright, let's go to our practical shooter. Our practical shooter has cleared the garment and the holster at about 0.60 of 1 second. His firearm does have a red dot which sets on top of the slide. At 1 second flat, 1.0, we see the gun smoke from his first round being sent. We can see the corresponding rise of the muzzle from that first shot at 1.03. So we'll use that measure to figure out the splits. We'll look for the rise of the muzzle. So we see the next time the muzzle rises, it's 1.20 for a 0.17 split. After that, it's 1.36 for a 0.16 split. You're going to see he's averaging 0.16 and 0.17 consistently. That's fast, and that's going to take work. Then it's 1.53 for a 0.17 split. Then it's 1.66 for a 0.16 split. Then it is 1.83 for a 0.17 split. So looking closer at this video, our USPSA practical shooting Grandmaster actually has all 6 rounds downrange into his target at 1.83. The 1.93, well, that shows that last shell casing soaring through the air. You might be thinking, why am I so worried about mere milliseconds? In this video example, we see the victim had only 2.73 seconds to see and recognize he had a major criminal problem spinning up. To see and to recognize this bad guy had a metal object in one of his hands, and then to initiate some kind of defensive action to solve that violent problem. If you are standing in the victim's shoes, do you like your odds better or worse if you're on the level of this brand new shooter who has not yet done the work, and she ends up around 1.66 to first shot? That shot doesn't look like it's aligned very well, so it may or may not hit the spot that it needs to hit to cause an incapacitation, which is a physiological stoppage. Or would you rather have done the work like Matt Pranka clearly has done, so that you've built in a consistent and repeatable fast draw to first shot at just 1 second flat, simultaneously beginning to retreat, expanding distance, which buys you more time, and having the ability to send a total of 6 rounds into your unjust criminal aggressor over a total of 1.83 seconds? And did I mention accurately hitting the spot that is highly likely to cause that physiological stoppage, that incapacitation? Look, most of us will not reach the level X-Ray Alpha has reached, but if we're willing to do the work, we can certainly close that gap and shave a whole lot of milliseconds off of whatever our beginning time is. We can certainly shave some milliseconds off accurate, fast splits. Just do the work. Situational awareness begins with an advance, which is an executive protection term for just do some research as it relates to risk assessment of the city or the geographical area within a city that you want to go visit for business, recreation, or pleasure. By far, the smartest way to win this kind of ambush that gets sunk in deeply is just don't stop in a high crime dangerous area to get gasoline at 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to give you a tip I don't think I've ever given in another video. If I utterly fail at logistics and planning, running on empty, and I have to stop after dark in a high crime dangerous area, I'm only pumping enough gas, maybe 2 gallons, to get me out of the city to a better location where I'm going to stop again to fill my tank to the brim. I'm going to severely limit my time of exposure or vulnerability.